Hello, I'm Rabbi Elton from the Great Synagogue in Sydney, and our personality today is Alfred Dreyfus, born in 1859 and died in 1935. If there's one personality in this series who really did not want to become a famous figure, who did not want to be remembered for the life that he led, it would be Alfred Dreyfus. He was forced to take a leading role in Jewish history and indeed European history, one that he never desired and would have done anything to avoid. He was born in 1859 in Alsace, in an area which was contested between Germany and France. In the 1870 war between France and Germany, that area was captured by the Germans, and so the family was forced to leave and move to part of France further away from the German border. This experience of being evicted by the German invasion led Dreyfus to want to undertake a career in the military. He was not from a religious family. His family were essentially very assimilated, very secularized, although they still had a Jewish identity. He entered a military college, and there he did experience some anti-Semitism, but not so much that it put him off from his chosen career. In fact, there were several Jews in the army of the French Republic at that time, including 10 generals. So although there was an undercurrent of anti-Jewish feeling, it was still clear that a Jew could rise to the very top of the French army system. The great turning point in his life came in 1894. There had been a series of leaks from the French military headquarters, from the general staff, and it was thought that secrets about French artillery plans were being sent to the Germans. And of course in the 1890s, France had just fought a war with Germany and thought a further war might come in the future, as it did 20 years later. Now there were several possible suspects, but the choice of a prime suspect fell upon Dreyfus, and in 1894 he was arrested. He was put on trial and convicted, and although he always protested his innocence, he was sent to Devil's Island in French Guinea in 1895. Now many people, including Jews, thought he might well be guilty at this point, although he always claimed that he had nothing to do at all with the espionage. But in 1896, the new head of French military intelligence came across evidence that in fact Dreyfus was innocent and another man was guilty. And in a very scandalous move, this evidence was suppressed. And this caused leading figures, including Émile Zola, the famous French author, to start campaigning on behalf of Dreyfus and his innocence. Zola famously published an open letter to the President of the Republic which began, "J'accuse. I accuse the Republic of collusion in the punishment of an innocent man." So much pressure built up that in 1899 there was a retrial, and despite extraordinary evidence that he was innocent, he was convicted all over again. Because by this point French society was totally split between the pro and anti-Dreyfusards, those who believed he was innocent and those who believed he was guilty, those who protested against the poor treatment of a Jew, and those who were fired by anti-Semitism, amongst other motives. However, there was such a scandal that after the trial in which he was convicted for a second time, the president pardoned Dreyfus and he accepted the pardon. He said, "I may leave without guilt, but I still leave without honour," because he wasn't acquitted, he wasn't exonerated. However, in 1906, he was finally exonerated by a military tribunal. There are some very famous images of Dreyfus. Not only was he convicted in a criminal court, he was also cashiered out of the army. He was ritually humiliated in a parade ground surrounded by soldiers. His sword was broken and his epaulets were torn off to show his utter disgrace as a member of the French armed forces. He was so broken in health by his time on Devil's Island, which was the reason he accepted the pardon in the first place. He simply didn't have the strength in order to go back to that terrible place with its terrible conditions. He was so broken in health that he was retired from the army in 1907. He accepted the position as an officer of the Legion of Honour, and he remained a member of the French Reserve and in fact fought for France in the First World War. He died in 1935 at a somewhat good age, despite his harsh treatment earlier in life, and his lasting contribution was to demonstrate that even in Western Europe, even in societies which were supposed to move past anti-Semitism, it was still very much alive, very potent and very dangerous to Jews who fell in its way. Thank you for joining.